so whenever you're ready, I'm recording, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay. I'm Stacy Drum. I teach 6th grade at Van Gorder Elementary School in Sparks, Nevada. And today we did a math lesson on division of fractions.
We want to understand the decisions you made in planning for this lesson and how it fits into the unit and year. First question, how does this lesson connect to and build on students' prior skills and knowledge, what was taught before the lesson, and what will come after it?
Last year they worked on division of fractions using models, but I knew that some of the teachers that the kids came from, including myself, didn't do a whole lot of modeling last year. So I really wanted to start them out, and this is a beginning lesson on division of fractions. I wanted to start them with looking at models, how they could help them, and then using the word problems because, you know, as I say during the lesson, I've never been just handed a worksheet of problems before. So I want them to think of real world situations where they may use this. So cooking, weight, time, that kind of thing. So building the models, I threw multiplication in there even though it's not part of the standard directly because I knew that they were going to have trouble differentiating between questions, word problems that had multiplication and division. So I wanted them to start seeing that.
Talk about the standards or cluster targeted in the lesson. What did you do to make the lesson reflect the full intent of that standard or cluster?
So the standard that we focused upon was 6NS1, which is the standard that says that they should be able to divide fractions and use them in real world situations, word problems, that kind of thing. So again, I did contrast it with some multiplication just to kind of bring in that opposite example and get them thinking. So it pretty much just focused on that one standard, which jumps off of a 5th grade standard too.
Which of the core action indicators do you think this lesson best exemplified, and how did you plan for this?
Okay, I do need to check on that one.
I'm going to pause this.
Okay.
Which of the core action indicators do you think this lesson best exemplified, and how did you plan for it?
Core action 3 really encompassed the whole thing where I provided the students with opportunities to exhibit the math practices. That's one reason why I wanted to go over the math practices before we started the lesson. It's something that we've worked on really since the 2nd day of school. And so on Core Action 3, it was really at the forefront of my planning. Core Action 1, I wanted to make sure that the shifts were included, and for 2, the instructional practices.
We're interested in how the shifts required by the CCSS are being incorporated into your classroom. First question is, discuss how this lesson illustrates the shifts required by the CCSS.
Okay, I'm going to grab that again.
Sure. You want me
Sorry.
to pause for? No, do you want me to read it, or are you good?
I can
Okay.
just go ahead. So the shifts that I was thinking of when I did the planning for this lesson was, first of all, shift 2, which is coherence. So that's the main reason why I worked multiplication in with the fractions, the division of fractions, so that they can compare and contrast. Also, deep understanding, they had to learn more than just the trick of skip, flip, and multiply, which they all knew. And they had to actually model it, so that deep understanding was included as one of the shifts. And then applying, so taking what they're learning and applying it to new situations.
Which of the core action indicators do you think this lesson, did we just go over that one? Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
we did,
Sorry,
yeah.
I just totally skipped a bunch.
That's
Okay,
okay.
going back to the shifts.
Uh-huh.
How did you teach the content of this lesson prior to the CCSS? What is the same and what is different?
Well, I taught 5th grade last year, and I did a little bit of modeling. I brought out some of the tools. So prior to the Common Core, I would have just taught the algorithm. It was more of a skill kind of practice and drill, I guess, instead of applying what they know. So prior to the Common Core, I would have taught them the algorithm, and we probably would have played with manipulatives a little bit, but not applied it in such a meaningful way.
Student engagement is crucial to the work of the CCSS, and we want to understand how you ensured that all students had the opportunity to productively engage in the work of the lesson. How did the students handle this lesson? Did they understand the mathematics?
Since this is more of a beginning lesson, they're starting to get it. I did notice as they went along that their understanding was faster. They were getting the answers more quickly. They were discussing things. As I walked around, I saw some students saying, "Oh yeah, that's right." You know, they were getting excited about it. I do discussion in my classroom all the time, and so I really like to let them have their own work in front of them and for them to work on it themselves and then discuss as a group, and then we always bring it back to whole class. A couple of the kids were really struggling, so I made sure I visited their groups more often and used proximity by standing with them. At the end, 1 or 2 students who had not participated as much got to stand up and present for the group, so hopefully they had a little bit of understanding by that point.
Explain how you differentiated in the lesson. Did all students have opportunities to work on grade level content? If all students did not have this opportunity, explain why.
Peer work is definitely the key to this lesson. So the students, all of this was on grade level, but they were able to help each other. I saw several students get up and walk over to a peer and actually help them draw it. Several of them pulled the tools from the front of the room, like the rainbow cubes or the Unifix cubes, and they were building it for their friends. So definitely peer work, I think, helped. As we go through the next week or so with these lessons, I'll know better if they're getting it.
Which behaviors from Core Action 3 did the students best exemplify in this lesson?
I have that right here. I think being able to choose the appropriate tools. I laid them out, but I didn't tell them what they had to use. I didn't even say that they had to use any. I was really excited to see quite a few students using the cubes, using the graph paper. Most of them chose to draw it out, but that's also a tool. They use different colors for different pieces. So definitely using tools was one of the big ones for Core Action 3. I had to establish the culture where the students have to always explain their thinking. Why is one of my favorite questions, and they usually now answer even before I have a chance to ask why. They explain what their thinking is. So definitely those two from Core Action 3 are big.
Great instructors are continuously learning, and we want to understand what you celebrated in this lesson and what you would improve upon. Reflecting on the lesson, what worked well and what might you do differently?
The students worked well together. I think judging by just looking at their answers right now, most of them got to the correct answer eventually. Since it's a beginning lesson, I like the way it went. I think it actually went better than I imagined it was going to. But what I'd do differently maybe next time is I had a few groups where I had several very strong math students who could really visualize the models. I probably would have spread them throughout the room a little bit more just to add a couple of strong kids to each group. We might have practiced with using some of those tools in this situation a little bit more, but I kind of wanted to see what they were going to do cold. It lets me know what I can work on in the future.
And then the last question is, were there any surprises or unexpected student behaviors or reactions?
You know, I always have those students who struggle with math, and then I get to something like this and they shine. There were a couple that having those tools available to them, like the rainbow cubes, and being able to demonstrate it for their group was huge. Where if I just thrown the algorithm at them, they may not have been as successful, but being able to draw and model and use the manipulatives, I think, was huge. So there were a few kids that really surprised me as to how well they did with this.
You were done. Good job.
Thanks.